Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series, where we continue to talk to people involved with the OPA board of directors. And I understand, the annual general meeting or attempt at an annual general meeting this Saturday. As always, the views and opinions are of the individuals themselves. They don't reflect me, Justice and Pieces, Trials College, or any other education institution or organization that I'm affiliated with. Today, we are joined by Warren Cummings. So, Warren, maybe you can give us a quick overview of who you are and tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, I started practicing in, I think it was November 2015. My primary focus is human rights and WSIB, and there is some crossover to employment law, with particularly in the area of duty to accommodate. I don't do POA, I don't do landlord tenant, I don't get involved in any of these others. My practice is strictly those three areas, and WSAB would 95% of it. I would say I am the former treasurer of OPA back in 2017 to 18, towards the end, to the beginning of 2018. I was the one that brought forward the changes in the fee schedule. Was initially $200 with the GST, and was $226. We reduced it to $150, and there was to be a levy on the membership of $25 for the purpose of the regional committees to do advertising within their areas, because they know their own markets, and the intent was that to be set into a trust account for that purpose. So I was directly involved with that. And we brought a lot of other initiatives in during that time period. The strat plan was one of the biggest ones, with the intention that we'd be able to apply for funding. With strat plans, you have to do a review every 6 months in order to demonstrate to the parties, lending you money or providing you grants, that you've got proper governance, that you're reviewing your mandates and your obligations and stuff. So after a few of these reviews, then you're qualified to apply for grants with the LSO and the other organizations and stuff. So we did a number of things. We did a lot of stuff for students, or there was a number of things proposed for students. I did bring in the $25 fee for students, but the intent was, there was a couple of different intents with that. One was, I thought the students should participate in the advertising for the future of the profession. The other was, we were looking at developing partnerships with some of these prep providers, so that the students would be able to get their prep for free for the LSO exams. And we were also looking at a step where we did pass a resolution that we would set up a scholarship fund in the name of the past presidents for students. I think the amount was $500, two $500 scholarships, and we'd be doing it twice a year. And like I said, it was strictly in the name of the past presidents and their honor sort of stuff for their contributions. So there's a number of things that we passed in our board that unfortunately got put to the wayside, and the stuff that I'd like to bring back for different reasons. I thought we had a lot of good initiatives, for everybody, but anyway.
So here we are, 2023. So you were last on the board about 5 years ago. And now my understanding, and again, I apologize, certainly I'm not a paralegal or never been a member of the OPA. And, anything I kind of hear are little trickles of information. So I understand on Saturday, they're going to attempt to have an AGM, attempt to maybe amend some of the bylaws, because as they stand, you've passed the time to elect a new board, and then with the hopes of those going through, then they'll attempt to elect a new board, assuming there's quorum, all sorts of things like that, and try to kind of perhaps go back to the days of 2018, as you mentioned, when they had all these initiatives, things were happening. So I mean, can you shed some more light into kind of what's happened, or I don't know how much you followed from 2018 when you were last on the board to today, and I know there's litigation, things like that, and I don't know what you can talk about, not talk about, but just maybe you can give for anyone listening, or anyone who may be an OPA member or thinking about paying those fees and participating on Saturday, a little bit, from your perspective.
Sure. The application is for an oppression against George Brown personally. It's not against OPA at all. It's basically because there has been no AGM for the past 4.5 years. The minutes that are posted to the members are abysmal. There's heavily redacted or just list an agenda. It doesn't list any information. I understand the board members have not been provided a monthly financial statements. This is one thing that there's a long history with Brian Emanowski, with Lucy DeFleece, and with I apologize, I can't think of the third girl's name. Every meeting, the board members were provided the bank statements, balance sheets, income, and a complete list of all the expenses that occurred in the month. And then there would be a summarization of it. My reports typically were somewhere around 50 pages, just because there's a lot of details to supply the board members, and then they would have to pass the report for the month, and then you'd have a new one for the next month, sort of stuff. So that was done every month to the board members. This is something that I understand has not occurred in the past 4 years. The minutes don't reflect any payments or approval of payments to the the various suppliers. We can see in the financial statements that there has been roughly about $100,000 been paid out they claim it for advertising. I suspect it's to do with the website. And there's another indication in 2022 that there was $33,000 paid, and it was not approved. And I don't know if they've recovered it or what they did with it. So I question whether, we got $133,000 been paid out for website development, which is kind of ridiculous. That amounts to almost 70%, 65 to 70% of the total income from the membership for those years. The 2020 financial statements suggest that we have a tax liability. On the one page, it says that we have tax liability of $7,500 and change for HST. And then on the page behind it, it talks about a past due HST of $15,000. So I've been asking questions on this. What are these amounts? And the other thing is why they hired a firm called Ocampo to do accounting, and then they had the audited statements done by a firm by the name of Deng Sang. The two balance sheets don't match each other, and I want to know why. Why would you have two, and not by a small amount, by 20 grand? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. The financial statements, in the 2018 AGM, the members choose who is to be the auditor for the next year. It's in the Corporation Act, in the bylaws. The members chose a gentleman named Michael King. He is the former auditor from one of the previous amalgamated organization, the PSO or LPA. I'm not sure which one he came from, but that's who they wanted to do 2018 and onward sort of stuff. Because we had some issues with the previous auditor. He wasn't filing the T2 corporate tax returns. So myself and Stephen Parker, who was president at the time, had to do a lot of researching and locating documents from previous boards in order to allow him to file the T2s. And he did file the T2s for 2014, 15, 16, and 17. The biggest issue was we had paid him $7,500 per audited statements, and he had not done the job properly. So this is why the members wanted a new auditor, and this is how they came up with the name of Michael King to do it. So the oppression application has to deal with a lot of this sort of stuff. My concern is, we may end up dropping a lot of the oppression application come June the 12th. Initially, this application was to be heard on May the 3rd, but I don't know if you're aware of the Keegan decision regarding the little girl and the dad that jumped over Rattlesnake Point, and there was a big case conference for the judges in regards to the domestic situation re-looking at. So on the day before, we got a notice that we're going to be rescheduled. And the solicitor for OPA was unavailable, she claims, until June 12th, which is, of course, the day after, or 2 days after the AGM. So, like I say, I would love to be able to drop the application in itself, but I do want to reserve the right that if we're looking at fines from like the CRA for failing to file T2s, if there's HST problems, who's going to pay this stuff? I don't think, if this is something that should have been done or taken care of, and there's going to be fines levied, then there's a little bit of concern about why the members having to do that. It's a big issue, and I want to make sure that members are protected in that respect. I have concerns over these financial statements, the 2019 and 2020, and the fact that Mr. Brown overstepped members' wishes. And will these statements have to be redone? I don't know. If they have to be redone, who's going to pay it? Who's going to pay the cost? Because, in my opinion, what the members want is what you do, right? These aren't things that you bypass or overstep. So that's a lot of what the oppression application is about. And like I say, the new board coming in, yeah, they're going to have to do a lot of work to clean up a lot of the stuff. They certainly indicated that the 2021, 2022 financial statements are unavailable. So that's one thing that has to be addressed very quickly. The other thing is the insurance, directors and officers of liability insurance is up on June 30th. And I don't know what arrangements. I know the current insurer, Victor Insurance, is not prepared to renew the insurance because of the outstanding claims. So we can't operate without D&O insurance. That's a really big concern for myself. So I don't know what has been done in that regard. So I've been asking questions, and as you noticed, I've been deleted or restricted from the Facebook group. So yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. There is other claims going on with Mr. O'Connor. I don't really want to get into those and what they're all about, but there's some question whether the insurer is going to cover these claims because of exclusions under the policy, under the D&O policy.
Now, Warren, I guess you've given your name forward, I think, in terms of standing in light of all this, and I know you mentioned if you can resolve some of these issues and then reserve that right in case who knows what happens. But I mean, what are you hoping kind of with everything here in terms of either restoring OPA? I mean, is it something that can be done given some of these allegations that again at this point still not proven, right? Is this sort of the death knell in OPA, or is this something that can be moved forward? I mean, obviously we don't know exactly to the extent. I mean, a lot of what you're saying, is concerning, I would think, for a paralegal or a lawyer or, anyone who's been a member of OPA. I've been paying all these fees and where is that money going? And we don't have financial statements for 2 years and questionable financial statements. You just said the contradictions from years back. I mean, these are pretty concerning allegations. So what are you hoping that, how it resolves itself either this weekend and beyond? And what do you want to say to sort of the members, past, present, or future of OPA, of what can be done to kind of dig ourselves out of this hole?
I'm hoping that we will be able to resurrect OPA. The problem is we're going to have to rebuild confidence in OPA. We have to rebuild integrity in OPA. We have to rebuild governance in OPA. These are all things that have been lost over the years. When I was on the board in 2018, Stephen Parker was our president, and he was invited to every Treasure LSO event with the LSO. And we flew Stephen all around the province to go to these dinners and stuff. We've lost that confidence in the LSO now. We are looked upon very poorly, to say the least. I don't think invitations have been ever made to. I think they were initially made to Mr. Brown in the beginning, but I don't think they've been made over the years because of different concerns that have been created. we, competency, the lawyers look at us for competency, and they look at us for, a lot, this problem with governance is that we've got these horrible problems with governance. They do see there's been no AGM. Other organizations have had the AGM even through COVID. They had to change to virtual, but they still had AGMs. We haven't had a members meeting in, I don't know how long. I'm very concerned about the quality of our CPDs. When CPDs were one of the things that attracted students, members to OPA, was you'd be able to get all your hours in through the OPA CPDs. So I think we need to restore a lot of this former stuff. I'm not saying our CPDs back then were great. I think we have to ramp them up a lot. I would like to see a graduated system of OPA CPDs, so that you've got the ones for new paralegals, one for intermediate paralegals, and one for the more senior paralegals, so that there's value. They can see value in all of them. My hope is that with senior paralegals, we'll be able to approach the LSO at some point in time on the competency issue and be able to offer CPDs in the areas like family law, judicial review, advancement in the criminal, advancement in small claims. But we've got to prove ourselves, to the LSO and the AG that we can do it, and we do have the quality CPDs that will allow us to do it. So we've got a lot of work to do, to say the least. And I'm hoping with that we can restore some faith in the membership back into OPA, so they'll reinvest it. As far as the fees are concerned, one of my former colleagues, Brian Emanowski, clearly taught us that we have to do our budgetary in December in order to determine our fees for the following year. I don't think the OPA has done a budgetary analysis in many, many years, because now they're talking about shortfalls to be able to do like this election. I've been asking about Simply Voting, which is a firm we've used in the past to do the audit of the election. So people go online, very much to the Bempters, go online, they vote who they want. So it's about $400. And I think we were at one time looking at a yearly subscription would be a lot cheaper, and things like bylaws and things like that could be added through the Simply Voting system, so that you're not doing, you've got some scrutinization going on as far as these different issues and stuff. So I think we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us, just a horrible lot of work to do with this. I find it very unusual that they're trying to pass bylaws that I look at involve governance, and I find it hypocritical that, in fact, with all the violations that have been set out with the board in the oppression application, they're presenting these bylaws to introduce advanced governance, but they didn't follow the governance through the 4 years. So I find it very, very strange that they're trying to do something like this.
Now, Warren, I mean, sort of just jump in there on that. So, I mean, let's accept, again, allegedly, over these 4 years, all sorts of things weren't happening, whether the things that you point out, meetings, reports, no AGM. I know there was an attempt last year that didn't get quorum from what I was told, again, by Bruce when he spoke to me. So, I mean, what's done is done, right? What can be done at this point? I mean, I know there's, again, if the bylaws, say, you have to have an election and so on, and every 18 months, I think, and we're past 18 months. I mean, what are the resolutions here? I mean, to kind of fix that, other than changing them. I mean, kind of retroactively, but I mean, is that even going to fly, right? I mean, in terms of corporation acts and things like that, or I mean, or do we reach the point where you just say, well, there's too much of a mess? I mean, you mentioned directors and E&O or liability insurance. I mean, if you're not going to get insured, then who's going to want to stand for the election on Saturday thinking, hey, well, what am I walking into, where I could be personally liable for all sorts of things that have already happened? No, or is it a solution of just like, okay, well, this is the end of OPA. Let's call something, Ontario Paralegal, new, whatever, the new OPA or whatever, come up with a new name and just start all over and try to rebuild, that cachet within the legal community. I mean, I'm just confused really of what's going to happen, and how is the legacy going to be restored if it can be restored.
That's what we're hoping. I think a new board looking at is going to, that's what they're going to have to look at exactly, is can we salvage what we've got here? Is there enough left to salvage, or do we simply have to pack it in? If we can't, like you say, can't get insurance, then we can't exist. If these tax liabilities, this GST and stuff, or HST is so great that it's beyond our abilities to pay, then yeah, we're going to have to pack it in. I'm hoping that's not the situation, though. I'm hoping we are going to be able to resolve some of the stuff, so we're going to have to approach maybe the CRA and ask for extensions or develop a plan with them to get some of the stuff paid. AGMs were always handled annually. They were typically done in November of each year. They've been done like that since 2014. So the first one, and we went up to 2018 was the last one. And so there was nothing for 19, nothing for 20, nothing for 21, and nothing for 22. The 2022, you're right, there was not enough quorum. There was 22 people on the video link. I think there's a lot of issue. People have a lot of issues with credibility with what the current board has done. For example, George said there was 11 to 1,200 members in his 2022 AGM announcement. Bruce Parsons is saying there's 402. It's a serious credibility issue, and I think it's going to take a hell of a lot of work on behalf of the board, who's ever elected, in order to reinstill the faith in the OPA with the members. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of work, as far as I'm concerned, and I just hope everybody's up for the challenge. Like I say, we need to reestablish ourselves with the AG and the LSO. They're certainly looking at us, and I'm sure you've heard the issues that from the benchers of competency. They talk about this with the family law. They talk about the different expanding scope, and we've got a lot of work to do. A really lot of work to do. My area that I'm most familiar with is financials. Doing financial documents as the former treasurer. I certainly have input into the other areas like the education input and other things, but I'm hoping the other members on the board are going to come in with some sort of specialty themselves, and we are able to work as a solid unit to make all of this stuff happen. I can't do it alone, and anybody that comes on this thing and says that they're going to accomplish this, they're going to accomplish that, it's a complete grouping, people coming together as a group to pull this off, and taking on small parts of all of this stuff to bring it back together. But like I say, I'm hopeful that we can. There's a lot of initiatives that I'm after. I've addressed some of them, like the students and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff. That's all I can keep saying, is there's a lot of stuff.
Now where maybe, I mean, certainly 2020, 2021, even 2022, COVID. Well, 2019, I mean, November 2019, I mean, there was anything particularly different than November 2018. So, I mean, was there any concern that there was no AGM? I mean, it sounds like, but a couple of years prior to that, everything was functioning normally, right? You were having meetings, there was CPDs, in-person stuff. So, I mean, I mean, and maybe you don't have the answer for me. I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do we get from 2018 to 2023 without, the membership and the people on the board and whoever to say, hey, what's going on with our organization over the last, a few months? And then, 1 month becomes 2 months becomes 6 months becomes a year. And here we are, 5 years later. I mean, is there anything that you can share in terms of that from November 2018 to today?
Well, looking at the members repository, looking at what's in there, 2019 board minutes are basically agendas for each of these board meetings. It doesn't give you any details of what was discussed at all. I think the first time we see anything within the board minutes was when Scott Kenley was the secretary, and I think that was 2020. 2021. Unfortunately, in looking at the minutes, they're heavily redacted, so you can't really tell who's doing what, and there's no real identification. The 2020 board minutes, they're spotty here and there, sort of stuff, as far as you know what's going on, sort of stuff. And 21 is kind of 21 is Scott Kenley, and 2022, on the repository, there's only minutes till March of 2022. We've got nothing since March 2022 onward. These are things that previous boards, these were, we had Leanne Moore, Thiebert is her name now, and Lori Marshall. They were constantly on these issues about, making sure the minutes were done. They're ready for the next board meeting to be passed by the board and then posted so the members knew what was going on. When we ran our CPDs, generally once a month. There might be a couple that were 3 weeks apart. Anyway, I got to turn this off. We would have our meeting right afterwards, the board meeting, and members were invited to follow through, stay longer and listen to what the board had to say. And we always used the city facilities, so there was no cost as far as renting a room or anything like that. Occasionally we did have to rent a room somewhere or whatever for a meeting, but I think the city allows us 8 meeting rooms a year, sort of thing. And I can't say they were well attended by members, but they were certainly attended by members to see what was going on and see what was developing and stuff. So I think we had a very open, transparent, with the board minutes being posted fairly quickly after the meetings. The members able to attend board meetings whenever they want. It was just an open invitation. The board meetings were posted on the website, on the calendar, so people knew when board meetings were being held. Our biggest cost back in the 18 and the 17 was the cost of Zoom. Things have changed a lot since then, but in order to do the CPD back then, I think it was like $2,200 a meeting to run the video guy and stuff. It's certainly a lot cheaper now, a lot cheaper.
Now, Warren, I guess we don't know how Saturday is going to play out. So certainly on the 12th, there's the application, as you pointed out. So for anyone, and I know it's not necessarily always glowing news that we've been talking about here. I mean, there's a lot of this gloom and doom, but for anyone that shares this concern of how can we restore OPA, how can we get past all of these issues? And again, a lot of the finances, the liability, I mean, they may very well be issues that they can't get past, but to kind of try to rebuild, and Saturday being an attempt at that. Now, what would you share and for anyone that's listening, and certainly why they should support you in your efforts to get back on the board here and try to return back to 2018, for lack of a better expression here?
I think the biggest thing is the members need to look at who's running and can these people work together in order to accomplish this stuff. We don't need individual fractions going off and doing tangent stuff. We need to come together as a board of whether it be 10 or 11 people to be able to come to do this stuff. One person can't do all of it. So we've got to take bits and pieces and people to work on the bits and pieces. Somebody work on the CPDs and the education part. Somebody has to deal with the LSO. It's going to take strong leadership, and I really hope the members look hard at the candidates and what they can offer as a group to accomplish this stuff. Because like I say, if the board is fractioned, and it has been in the past, we're not going to go anywhere, in the next year or 2 years, whatever these members serve for. Like I say, it's a team effort. If you're not looking at it as a team effort, then you're looking at it the wrong way. And not be looking at individuals so much as to looking at, can these people work together to accomplish where OPA needs to go and where OPA needs to accomplish these things.
Now, Warren, I mean, I see that. I mean, not like it's only an issue with OPA on the board of directors elections, and certainly not just a paralegal issue. Lawyers certainly also throw shade at each other online, on Twitter, whatever. But I mean, how do you kind of get past all that, as you said, to work together when there's all this infighting, right? I mean, is that does that really take that strong leader to step up and say, okay, look, here's the common interest we have. We want to see the success of this organization or restoring to the success, and in order, people have to fall in line and be compromising on these different issues, and because again, in the end, if OPA goes up, or there's no lobbying group or paralegal association to ask for things like scope, to ask for things like the family law and what happened there, then it doesn't help anyone. It hurts everybody, right? So I mean, what is it going to take to get everyone on that same page, whether through Saturday or beyond?
You know, I guess I was privileged in seeing a number of presidents. Stephen Parker, to me, was outstanding. John Tanzas was an outstanding president. And looking at how they, there's certainly, when you get into these board meetings, there's hostilities and anger and, everything. But if the people are on the board are truly coming together, I love it when, somebody disagrees with my opinion and tells me why they disagree with it. Maybe it opens my eyes up to something I didn't consider. So I have no problem with disagreements and yelling and screaming and the other stuff on the board. But in the end, as long as our focus is one thing, and that's the members of the association, and to advance OPA, then it's great. I've got to walk away from the meeting and realize, hey, man, I'm not be all and end all of OPA. I'm simply here as one team member and working in the interest of the members of OPA. And, I've got to listen constructively to what other people have to say. And I hope they listen constructively to what I have to say, and using what expertises we have as a group, so if I become the financial chair and I'm able to, say, okay, we can budget this, we can budget that, we can do this, we can do that. And then taking it from there as to, okay, this is what we can do and this is how we can do it. Not my input, but the other people's input into it. Certainly in 2018, we had a lot of outreach. I think we had 10 trade shows a year, 10 or 12 trade shows a year that we were able to do and stuff to promote OPA in the community. Again, these were taken on by different members of the board, but fully supported by, the financial secretary, the president, the vice chairs. We all pitched in to do it. I'm certainly not, end all be all. I'm part of a group of people that I hope in the end have respect for each other, even though we disagree. So I'm not looking for power players to work with any power players here. I'm looking to work with some, very opinionated people when it comes to certain issues, and open our eyes to things that I didn't see or other people didn't see. So I guess it comes down to mutual respect, that this is how we have good governance. This is how we have transparency. This is how we bring back integrity to the board. The bickering and stuff has to stop for sure. Absolutely. And like I say, the oppression application, I'm hoping I can go on the 12th and tell the judge on the 12th, look at, Your Honor, we were able to work out all of these issues and we're able to move this thing forward. But I do have a lot of concerns about liability, future liabilities, and who's going to pay for it. I don't think the members should be, when it wasn't under the members' control. One thing I will be introducing as a motion is that anything that we're going to spend over $1,000 has to be approved by the members. It can't simply be done by the board. It's got to be done by the members. Have to elect on, because we're looking at expenses in these financial statements that are ridiculous, and the members have the right to know what's going on. It's not right that a board has approved $40,000 or we have $33,000 that's unaccounted for. That's not right at all. So I think that will bring the control back to the members on spending a bit. All right. There's certain things that we have to pay for, QuickBooks account and Google accounts and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the bigger ticket items. So that's some of the stuff I hope to put forward.
Perfect. So Warren, any final words here as we wrap up? Anything else you want to say to OPA members, past, present, or future there, and certainly we'll see how things go this weekend, and we'll see then accordingly how things go on Monday, depending on that result.
Yeah, I'm hoping one of the things we can do as OPA is we can develop relationships, whether they be ad hoc members of the board or we can come together. I'm talking about the Ottawa Carleton group. I'm talking about the Hamilton group. I don't know if the London group still exists. But any of these, the York region group, coming together on big items, big things where we need to make submissions to the AG or the LSO, that we can come together as a group and make these presentations as one body on behalf of paralegals. I think that's very important, that we need to be able to do that. I don't see that any value in, the Hamilton group or the Carleton group or the York region group, everybody submitting their own thing. I think it's better that we come together as a paralegal group, representing all the paralegals for the province, whether they are in different groups, to present this stuff. Because we got a lot, like I say, there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed. Family laws, a huge one right now. Expanding our scope. There's so many issues on expanding scope. The other thing is, I think we need to reach out to our members with a survey, finding out what they want of OPA, what direction they want OPA to go to. Are they interested in advancing POA? Are they advancing interest in immigration, family law, all these different components? Let's hear what the members want us to do, not fraction groups saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. What's going to benefit the biggest percentage of OPA members? And then doing some sort of, priorities from it, I think is important. I look at, there's just, at some point in time, I've expressed this a number of times, at some point in time, I'd like to be able to see paralegals branch off from the LSO as a separate division of the LSO, still within the LSO, but we have the lawyers on one side, and we have the paralegals on the other side, and our own independency. But we have to crawl to this. We're not going to get that tomorrow, right? We have to start small with little things, and maybe we can graduate into the other stuff slowly. But I do think we have to be self-identifying and separate from the lawyers, because the lawyers have their interest and we have ours, and they do conflict, right? Clearly. This is all work that we need to do. I think we need to work on fees. It's another thing, as far as the lawyers have their insurance, their Law Pro insurance. Paralegals need to come together, and we need to maybe have a similar thing for paralegals. And maybe we can do financing for the LSO, paralegal dues, and insurance costs, all as one thing on a monthly basis for paralegals. The LSO is, I think, was it $90 or something they charge if you put your fees on a payment plan with them. Why doesn't OPA? At one time we had the financial resources to be able to do that we could, do that sort of stuff. We need to try to go back to some of these things. That was stuff that the 2018 board was looking at and trying to do. Like I say, it's very sad that a lot of things have been lost that we tried to accomplish. So,
well, Warren, I guess we'll see how things go this weekend, and thanks for taking the time and joining me and sharing some more information. I mean, about what's going on, and hopefully, what happens on the weekend will kind of lead to a path of better advocacy for paralegals as a group, in whatever that direction the board may take, or people may take, in terms of where they stand on all these issues you brought up. Well, anything is better than nothing, right? So let's see what can be done, and looking forward to finding out more this weekend. Thanks so much, Warren, and thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you very much. Bye.